Why are the religious this dumb? I know I ask that a lot, but I never really get a good answer. Their arguments are ridiculously easy to debunk, but they don't care because they really want to believe. It's just a meme at this point, and they can't see where they're going wrong because they just don't care. So let's dive right back in, my friends. It's all downhill from here. We're back with the Thomistic Institute, a Catholic think tank with some pretty massive air quotes, because these people are just as stupid as every other theist out there. That's not a big surprise or anything, because, let's be honest, they're all dumb, but this is painfully so. Just because you spout your bullshit beliefs confidently, that doesn't mean you have anything to be proud of, and this certainly qualifies. So, let's get back to it, already in progress.
But we may wonder, why does having a cause of existence mean that all existing things have the same cause of their existence?
That's not my question, but hey, I guess we'll just have to go with it. I'm sure we'll get to my question sooner or later. I suppose it's a fair point, but that's something that he'll try to baldly rationalize away, right? This happens in pretty much every single religious video out there where they will pose questions and then just say, "It's my God." Well, how the hell did you get there? By insisting that they do. That's all they can do. And we should never let them get away with it. Well, how do you know that? They don't. They just really like the idea. But liking the idea doesn't make it true. They'll just stop talking to you after that because they're not really interested in finding the most rationally, evidentially supportable conclusion that they can. They just really want to believe.
After all, we might be able to point out all the things that exist and identify their individual causes of their existence. Isn't that sufficient?
It should be, but for the religious, they are desperate to get to their own imaginary friend, so no, that's not really what they're after. They have a goal in mind, and when you're supposedly looking for truth, trying desperately to guide the search so that you get the answers that you most want, that's a really bad epistemic system for discovering anything remotely resembling the truth. Granted, the religious, they're not looking for the truth at all. They are only after comfort, and that is a complete waste of time. These people desperately need to grow up, and that would sure be nice, wouldn't it?
Why should we point to a common cause of existence? The response to this objection can come from several angles, but the simplest way is to turn back to an argument like that found in the first and second ways. All being must have a common cause, because no series of causes or dependent beings can be infinite.
And Aquinas was an idiot. Granted, he didn't know much of anything back in the 13th century, and we have to be fair and not criticize him for that, but he was also looking specifically to justify his own religious beliefs, just like the doofus on screen is trying to do. When you start with a conclusion that you like for emotional reasons, you don't tend to get anywhere intelligent. When you look at these religious arguments, you tend to see that they are constructed specifically to get them where they already wanted to go. It's pure confirmation bias. That's why you have to point this out. Don't let them get away with it. And as we know, that means they're going to stop talking to you because they depend on being able to steer the conversation straight into their religion. This is not honest, and that's not exactly a surprise.
And there must be some ultimate cause that gives existence to all things.
Because you say so. Ultimately, that's all he's doing. But my religion says it's true, therefore it is. So there. Okay, prove it. I don't have to prove it. My faith says I'm right, so I'm right. It just spirals around the drain from there because these people aren't thinking intelligently. I don't know that they're even thinking at all. They just really want to believe. they know where they want things to go, and they'll do whatever it takes, no matter how irrational, no matter how dishonest, no matter how stupid, to get their beliefs there. I don't think most of them are necessarily being dishonest in the sense that they absolutely know it's false, but they're still spouting it anyhow. Although, certainly we do see some that absolutely are, but they can't ask the intelligent questions required to get around their unsupported preconceptions because they don't want to. It's just gotta be true or they'll be sad. And yes, that is every bit as stupid as it sounds.
In mentioning this connection, I am not saying that the existence argument is reducible to the first or second ways. Instead, I am pointing out that the same causal reasoning that justifies the first two ways can also justify the truth of premise 2 in this argument.
And honestly, I've already lost where he's trying to go. I don't think even he knows what he's trying to get at. He's just spouting theologically comforting nonsense and hoping that it cons the gullible in the audience. I mean, we've taken apart Aquinas' 5 ways in the past, and it's not going to get any better now. But Catholics in particular, they tend to value the old dead religious thinkers without ever asking themselves if they should, because their religious beliefs are a giant stumbling block to thinking critically or rationally about their faith. It just has to be true, because of course it is. Well, how do you know that? I just do. I mean, at a fundamental level, there's no having an intelligent conversation with these people because they've been so brainwashed to only see the world in a certain way that they can't look at it any other way. There's only so far that you can push them before they start to freak out. And that's not a good thing, and it says something very sad about their state of mind, if they're using their minds at all, because these people have mental and emotional problems. They really do.
For insofar as we say that all diverse things exist, and existence is taken as a common term, we can take it as a common term precisely because existence must have an ultimate common source.
Not true. Of course, this is just the bald rationalization that they've given themselves and then just slapped a God label on it and called it a day. First, they are claiming a lot of things that are simply not in evidence. Our particular instantiation of space-time is not all that exists. We know that the Big Bang came from a state of intense heat and density, not nothing. All that exists or has ever existed did not come into being at the point of the Big Bang. There was something else before that. Now, we don't know what that was. We might never know what it was, but there was something there. We can't even say whether the physical laws that govern our instantiation of space-time applied to whatever it was that was there. Therefore, the answer, the only answer, at least at present, is we don't know. But the religious are claiming that they do. How? Well, they don't know that. They just really like the idea. This is why the whole thing just falls apart, because they are asserting things that they cannot conceivably know because the idea just happens to appeal to them. What the hell is wrong with these people? That's really the question, though, isn't it? Wishing that you knew things that you don't demonstrably know just makes you look like an idiot. Because you are.
One objection to this argument can come from Immanuel Kant and his followers. Insofar as we treat existence as having some sameness, we seem to be treating existence like a predicate, something which Kantians and many others deny.
You're not really getting anywhere useful. My criticisms have nothing to do with Kant. They have to do with the fact that you are making assertions and engaging in logical fallacies because you have a goal in mind that you're going to get to, logic, reason, and evidence or not, because you don't care. Now, we'll have to see where he goes with this, of course, but by the time that you get to this point, you're already so completely out there that really there's no reason to continue, is there? But hey, we're down to about a minute and a half of his video, so we might as well write it out. Keep in mind that I have no goals here except the truth, and he absolutely has goals in mind because his livelihood and emotional comfort depends on it. I don't care where we end up, so long as where we end up is the best supported position that we can have. He does. That's a problem, but what else is new?
Without going into the merits of Kant's argument, I should note that the idea that existence is common to all things that exist does not require that existence be a common predicate.
Well, isn't that circular? Because existence isn't a characteristic, it's a state. It's like saying all alive things are alive. Well, thank you, Dr. Obvious. You haven't actually said anything of any value, have you? It's all just a tautology, and there's no value whatsoever in that. All he's doing is trying to make it sound good to people who aren't all that bright to begin with, and who already desperately want to believe. Remember, none of this is being made for us. He's relying on people wanting what he says to be true, so he doesn't have to justify any of it intelligently. So long as it sounds good enough to his intended audience, he's golden. It's when people like me come along who don't buy into his silly preconceptions and are willing to ask the hard questions, that's when he gets into trouble, right? But he'll refuse to talk to somebody like me because I'm not going to give him money, and that's what he's desperately after. This is all just a scam after all. Let's not pretend otherwise.
After all, commonness here just is similarity or sameness in the broadest sense. To see this fact, consider the following propositions. 1. Dog X and cat Y have existence in common.
Unless it's an imaginary dog or cat, because Garfield does not exist in the same sense that Benji does. Garfield was a cartoon, and Benji, at least in the movies, was played by a real dog. Heck, even in his example, he's got drawings, not actual animals. Now, I guess you could argue that they exist at least as concepts, as ink in the colloquial sense on paper, but who cares about that? Big deal. So if you want to say that those things have a cause, even conceptually, I guess I'm fine with that. But that doesn't make it a god. It doesn't make it an intelligence. It just means you're reading into things because you really want it to be true. Here's a picture of a cloud that looks like a dog. Did it have a cause? Well, sure, wind currents and moisture in the atmosphere interpreted through our own imaginations. There was no intelligence there except in our minds. Yet it still exists, right? It's still a cloud. It's just not what we're interpreting it to be. So this whole thing is just stupid. This is just him interpreting things the way that he really wants to see them. And I'm sorry, but that's really dumb.
2. Existence is not a predicate.
Depends on how you mean it. Now, he might explain in a second. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But you notice how the religious like to just state things confidently without having any evidence or support, right? Existence is a state. A thing that exists, exists. A thing that stops existing no longer exists. A thing that has never existed has never existed. It tells you nothing more than that. A thing is a thing is a thing. A equals A. It's not really that hard. Now, let's get back and see if he has anything to say for himself except, here's an assertion that I really, really like. Because that's really all it is. I think he said something about Kantians stating that existence was a predicate, something along those lines, and here he's just disagreeing. So far, he hasn't given us any reason to take his premise seriously at all. Let's go see if that changes.
While commonness does need to be explained by a theory, there is nothing inherently contradictory about holding both propositions.
But there's nothing supported in doing so either. It doesn't matter what you want to be true. And this goes for everyone, because I see it all the time, even from atheists. Just stating something confidently doesn't mean anything. Saying a thing is true, that doesn't make it true. You need to be able to support it, And the religious, and frankly a lot of atheists from a particular political bent, they're not even trying to do that. They are all doing pretty much the same thing wrong. It doesn't matter who you are, it still makes you look really stupid.
As such, to hold that all existing things have existence in common does not necessarily fall prey to the Kantian objection.
It's still just a tautology, though. It means nothing whatsoever. This is just theological masturbation at its finest. He's now spent an entire video saying absolutely nothing of substance, much less proving any of his conclusions are actually true. He's just expecting his already religious audience to leap to an unjustified conclusion because they've already been programmed to do so. This is just pandering to his intended religious audience. It's what all apologists do, and it is blatantly dishonest. Not that they really care or anything, because this is all still just a scam. If they can throw enough emotionally comforting words and ideas out into the void, they're expecting money and support to come flooding back in. Keep in mind, this guy is selling a course on this. Or at least he was when he put this video out. It's always about money, right? That's what happens when you're a leech on the ass end of society. And that's what the clergy class exists to do.
All that being the case, we now have good reasons to suppose that premises 1 and 2 are true.
No, you don't, because I've already pointed out tons of things wrong with both, plus all of the unjustified assumptions that you're just rolling into both of them. This is exactly why the religious tend to strap the goalpost to their back and do a gish gallop downfield. They just make a bunch of claims as quickly as they can so that nobody has the time to take a serious look at any of them. Not that they care if any of it is actually true, because they're just racing toward the conclusion that they've been pushing the whole time. It's just dishonest. Always has been, always will be. But look at who we're talking about. Scammers and conmen and snake oil salesmen have been doing this forever, and why would modern versions of that stop now? Because they just want to get paid.
Therefore, the conclusion follows.
It doesn't, though, because all of the premises are invalid. Besides, it doesn't get him anywhere. Oh, he's expecting his religious audience to say, and that causes God because I really want it to be. It's the same thing William Lane Craig depends on with a stupid Kalam argument that gets him nowhere remotely close to his imaginary friend. It's completely invalid intellectually, but he knows that his followers don't have a collective brain cell in their heads, so what difference does that make, right? Remember, this video is called Can Nominalism Deny the Existence of God? And he hasn't even mentioned God yet. Nowhere in his syllogism is God mentioned even once. He's just counting on people to leap to that conclusion because they really want it to be true. And that's bullshit. The only way to get to God is to prove God. And they're not even trying. But let's let him keep going, and we'll just laugh at it then.
Namely, that there is a common cause of existence.
Which doesn't mean it's a god. That's any god, much less your God. Of course, he's counting on stupidity and blind faith, which are both absolutely pointless. The title of his video still fails, not that he cares. Well, of course it's God. No, you're just an idiot. You really ought to knock that off.
This cause of existence is, as St. Thomas says, God.
Bullshit. Point not proven, shove it right up your ass. This is exactly why people like Aquinas and Augustine and all the rest are such laughable jokes, because that's all any of them are doing. They start with a conclusion that they came to not through reason or evidence, but through fifis and faith, and this is what we call a desperation move, to get to the place they really want to be, but none of it stands up to any kind of rational scrutiny. He just really wants it to be true. You don't just get to leap to, therefore God, but that's all they ever do, right? He has not gotten anywhere remotely close, and he has done nothing but make a complete fool of himself. But then again, he doesn't care about that because the idiots in the pews, they keep paying him, and that's all he's really after. Now, as I said last time, I don't give a damn about nominalism. I care if he has a coherent, rationally derived, evidentially supported argument for his imaginary friend, and as we've seen, he clearly doesn't. Not that he cares or anything, but he doesn't. He's pulling the same absurd bullshit as all the other apologists do because none of them have anything of substance to present. They just really want to believe, and that is never going to be enough.
There is more that we could say about the argument, but that is sufficient for now. Until next time, may God bless you and keep you in His grace.
Yeah, fuck you. This is honestly why I hate doing Catholics, because they all seem to be this dumb. I mean, all theists are, but they are a special class of stupid, aren't they? Well, my church says so, so it's gotta be true. And that goes for anyone who wears the Catholic label. They said it, I believe it, that settles it. What the hell is wrong with you? That's a fair question, isn't it? It is so painfully simple to rip these people a new asshole, but they don't care because it's all fifis and faith. Well, fuck your fifis and faith. I legit don't care anymore. Yet this is really about the best that it gets from the religious, isn't it? I mean, any of them. Muslims pull the same thing, so do Hindus. I mean, all of them do this because this is the best that they can manage. But it doesn't make it worthwhile, and they don't care because they just really want to believe. And they wonder why they get laughed at. I don't. They deserve it. Yet, where do you go for quality theist arguments? Clearly not anywhere on this planet, sadly. Maybe if we ever find aliens and they're dumb enough to be religious, they might have some better arguments, but I'm not really holding out any hope, are you? Humans are just pathetically stupid, and it's getting worse all the time. Religion is one of the worst things that mankind has ever made up, although there are a couple of other things that are in close competition. How the hell do we fix humanity? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, because I'm really tired of this. Stop the planet and let me get off, because there is no intelligent life here.